Thanks for joining us today as we review and compare two movies, Independence Day and Independence Day Resurgence, otherwise known as...
Please, for the love of all humanity, stop at one.
That's true. I'm John Newton, and this is Eric from Your Brother in Christ. We're going to take a look at both of these movies and ask that question. Is it really necessary? This is kind of an iconic movie that was done that really fits for today. So if you're an American and you're in the United States, Independence Day, that's what today is, and that's why we're choosing these two movies. And you may not have known that there was an Independence Day 2 that came out. And if you saw it in the theater, you might have left and then forgot that you had seen it because it is...
it's very forgettable.
It's forgettable, yes. And maybe for traumatic experiences, you would say, "Lo, please let me not listen to this. Let me not remember what I had seen." So we're going to take a look at both of these and compare them side by side. In comparing these movies, I came up with a theme that was here. We were able to finally extract one that was out. And we're gonna take a look at theatrical review of it and also thematic review like we usually do. And the thematic review, pull out what we can as a message that possibly we can share with somebody else. So surprisingly, the second film touches on a concept that the first doesn't, even though it does seem like Resurgence was like, let's do it all over again, make it bigger, faster, more explosions, and make more money. Didn't work out too well.
No.
Before we move on, please take a moment and like this video. You can always unlike it later and hit the subscribe button so you can find out when more of these reviews are done in the future. Eric, on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate Independence Day and Independence Day Resurgence?
Independence Day on its own, I'd say 8.
Okay.
8 verging on 9. And then the Resurgence, like 4.
Wow. Okay, I was kind of close. I did 7.5 on the first one, and maybe a 4 on the second one. It was a close call. I'd almost bump it down to a 3. Now, why was that? Well, we can take a look at. It's been long enough for both of these movies. We can take a look at box office performance, so that might tell us something that's going on here. Independence Day, the first one, 1996, a long time ago. It was significantly more successful, both domestically and internationally, compared to Independence Day Resurgence, which came out in 2016. Despite having a much larger budget, Independence Day, and that's the blue on the bottom. You can see how far that's gone out. That was the budget. Blow it out the door. More than twice what the budget of the original movie was. But in the performance on the top graph, you can see the orange. Independence Day 1 just did overall much better, much more successful. So despite having a much larger budget, Independence Day Resurgence did not come close to matching the financial success of its predator. This may be because of, I don't know, besides the movie just not really coming.
It was superhero fatigue.
Was it then? You think
it was
actually
so totally super? That's what. Yep, 100%.
You're kind of
superheroes in the movie at all.
I was gonna say you're kind of smiling when you're saying that. I don't think that was what it was, but because of issues such as maybe lack of originality, there's a lot of repeat that was done there, over reliance on CGI, underdeveloped characters, and it seems to me like throwing everything, every trope you could possibly have, every science fiction trope into the bucket and blend it all together. That's what this movie came out. And it really didn't seem like it was cohesive and stuff like that. No. So before we get into too much of the detail here, I'm going to throw on the spoiler warning because if you do want to see it, go check it out.
You're not spoiling much.
Wait, you know what? You can kind of, there's a lot of, if you suspend your credibility, the belief that you have that this is actually going to make a whole lot of sense, that you're really going to fall in love with any character, you just want to go see eye candy, go for it.
Yeah, stuff that makes movies great. If you don't include any of that,
That's
then
right.
This movie can be a 9.
Now, actually, it was a struggle, but sometimes you can't get a good theme out of a movie, a good analogy, something about maybe kingdom principles. But this one, I think there is. It's a bit of a stretch, but when we get to it, hopefully it might be worthwhile. Comparing to the original, the high expectations, the original Independence Day was such a big hit that both financially and culturally, I would say there was a bit of a cultural impact on this too, because there's a lot of people that reference that. You have the exploding White House. Thank you very much. The exploding White House that was there. You've got the characters, Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith, that are both in there, and they really worked well together. I think in the first movie, both the characters, you have Will Smith, who is this snarky, like welcome to Earth. You've got all that happening there, and Goldblum's this kind of nerdy scientist, and they're a good match. They're good. They play off each other pretty well, I think, in the first movie. They give a good balance, right? And there's a reason why Will Smith was not in the second one. We'll hit that in a bit. But the first one was such a big financial success. Why not do a second one? 20 years later, why not? It's worth it. Well, if you're going to rely on nostalgia only and repeat, try to do the same thing as you had in the first one, only bigger, better, more characters, better special effects, more explosions, more complex aliens that are coming, because you're adding another thing in there. You got the other alien that's coming in. We still have spoiler alert here, right? Good. Yes. The problem is when you put too much into it, it falls apart. It
wasn't really clear in the sort of story that I was trying to give us. It was trying to do the old one, just like you said earlier, bigger, better.
Yeah. That's
trying to do that. And no, I think it could have done much better if it would have stood on its own.
Yeah.
In its own category. One, being made 10 years earlier would have definitely helped. Be a little more closer to that original release. But it would have been interesting if they would have taken what happened to our culture after the integration of the alien technology, where we're going to go from here, what's going to happen.
Right.
And maybe we go after the aliens, maybe. But it's more of it would have been more interesting to see the impact in society, which would have been a completely different story than what they had here. Although they did have alien technology integrated into society. Would have liked to have seen that expanded.
Right. Well, so this is I think this is one of the weaknesses here. You have just that aspect alone. Science fiction, when it's really good, sometimes can be when you take a what if question and drill deep on it. And the what if question here could have been, what are we going to do with all this alien tech?
Yep.
Okay.
How does that impact culture?
Just that by itself would be enough. Now, the MCU did this. And one of the Spider-Man, I think it was Homecoming. One of the, I should have looked this up before I got on here. One of the Spider-Man movies after Avengers, they had all the alien tech that was left over.
Yes.
And you had the Vulture.
That was, the Vulture.
Okay. Vulture. So he took that.
I think Homecoming.
Right. I couldn't unsee Superman there. I mean, Batman there. But you took that, and he was able to expand on what are we going to do with this? You can have scavengers going on and maybe getting into it and using it for themselves, selling it on the black market. There's all sorts of questions like that could be done. One of the things that really kicked me off right at the beginning, we're just talking about the second one, Resurgence, right at the start when they did this is 20 years later, and they have rebuilt the world basically, which has been devastated. All these major cities have been blown up. Billions of people. I don't know what your ratio would have been, but I would say at least half the population has been killed because you have so many people living in cities, right?
Yep.
And so half the population is gone. Infrastructure across the world, not just one nation, but but
It would have collapsed.
you would have had a dark ages after that. And it would have been subsistence living for a long time, more like getting back into feudalism. You would have maybe had warlords that were over different regions. You would have had people just trying to get food. Food would have been the most important thing. You had gone back to farming. How are we going to do this? And then, like you said, the warlords coming back and forth over that. But
that would have been interesting. That sort of dystopia made us trying to rebuild after this massive alien invasion.
It would have taken generations for us to get back
back to where we were.
And meanwhile, you got all this. If you had this alien tech that would have been mysterious, and people would have had superstition about it eventually after a few generations, and then you'd have some groups, some scientists, some engineers who would be able to maybe reverse engineer parts of it. Especially if the stuff's not going to be energized, it doesn't have any power. How in the world are you going to figure out how this stuff works?
Yeah.
So this would have been years, but they did this in 20 years. And the world, we're one world government. We got a female president. Everybody's happy. Everybody's well fed. Space travel to the moon and beyond. It's wonderful.
It seems like no one died. There was no actual serious impacts in society from the massive alien invasion other than good benefits.
Right. Okay. So here's put another contrast and going back to the MCU on this. When you had Endgame, Avengers. Thank you. No. Avengers. Well, okay. With the Thanos snap, snap, you have so many people. You had the recovery. You had people feeling guilty about You had survival guilt. You had society really trying to come back together. And why didn't we do what we should have done? Some things back then. Why didn't we handle things differently? There'd be all these questions that would be asked. So that's probably a good way to handle it story-wise. But there's a reason why it was 20 years, besides just the films being 20 years apart, 1996 and 2016. There's a reason why there was a 20-year gap there, that they had to do it. Do you know why that is?
Why is that?
Because of the characters. They wanted to reuse the same characters, and the actors had actually aged 20 years. So if they're going to bring people back, have that nostalgia feel, then you would do that. We just did a review on another one, Planet of the Apes, the most recent Planet of the Apes. It was hundreds of years after the previous one. So you can't have the same characters. You can refer to them. And that made sense because there was all this buildup in between. So that was one part of it. There's multiple things that are bad. And that's why I'm not even wearing a dress shirt today. I'm in mourning for how bad the second one was. But the reason why we're doing this is because of Independence Day. Today, July 4th, marks that for the United States. And there was a lot of that was in the original movie here. It was so. What made the first movie good, would you say?
I'd say one of the strong points was this major event happened. These aliens come here. They start wiping out humanity. And the ones who rise to the occasion are random individuals. It's not something like in this one where it was like, okay, these guys were trained for this. They're going in there. These are specialists. They are superheroes ready to go, basically, set up for these characters. And end up doing superhuman stuff in some cases, where in the original, it was just random Joe here making do with what he's got, and we've got to pull together.
Right. You have the drunk crop duster who comes in and saves the day with the final blast. Will Smith is his character is the only one that has survived from his squadron. That everybody else has been wiped out. You have people that have been devastated and just pull themselves together to do this. You're right. The second one was more of it's assigned. Everybody has an assigned position, and they live.
They all live. There's nothing really at stake for the main characters themselves because they're come out on top. In the original, it really wasn't that way. You weren't sure on who is going to come out. Now, Another aspect of this was the first one. These mysterious aliens pop up. They've got high tech. We're not sure how to beat them. We're not, we're scrambling to hold on to grasp any straw we can in order to survive. The second one, we do basically the same thing. We're scrambling, trying to grasp any one straw, even though we've been able to rebuild better, faster, stronger. The aliens come in, and even though we've integrated the alien technology into our defenses, we just can't do anything.
Yeah.
They just wipe everything out, and it's an overpowered bad guy coming in that I think really plays badly.
Yeah, and there are some other twists. Now, I'm curious to see in the chat here if anybody here has seen the second. If you've seen the first movie, let us know. If you've seen the second movie, and remember that you saw the second movie, please let us know also. There was there were you had this other alien force that came in here as well, and
knee-jerk reaction of humans: shoot it.
So yeah, and this is a good guy, good alien who's been fighting the bad aliens for who knows how long, and has come to help humanity, and we shoot it down. So there is, and then we find out finally how to do this. But the problem with the storyline here is you have that going on. You have these repressed memories that are coming from people that have had contact with the aliens. So they're seeing images and symbols. You have that going on. You have the backstory of all the characters that are happening. There's so many elements that are competing for top place that it ends up just being a muddle, that there's no real overriding thread that you can follow. And the same with the characters. I don't think I was really rooting for anybody in particular. I didn't have any emotional grab like we did for the first one. You wanted to really see them succeed.
Well, I think the first one you were able to identify with the characters a lot more because they were just, again, random individuals who are being thrown together in this situation and trying their best.
Yeah.
And you can identify with that. I mean, again, the crop duster. Yeah, he got a huge lead in the first one.
Yeah.
And it's just, he was down on his luck. He didn't have his life all together planned out.
No. So Davos said, I saw the first movie 20 years ago. I didn't know there was a sequel. I think that's pretty much what it is. This one was
it was forgettable.
It just didn't make an impact. It's most people. I don't think most people would know there is an Independence Day 2. And you're welcome. Of course, go ahead and watch it if you like. But have low expectations if you're going to see it. The main idea, we'll just go ahead and tell you what the main plot of both movies was. The first movie, Independence Day, you have these alien spacecraft, one big mothership, and it breaks off into these smaller pieces that go all around the world. They're using our satellite system as communication. Now, there's fault with that. They have, because they can't, there's line of sight for communication between all these alien ships. So they have to bounce off our satellites to do that. That's fine, but you guys, alien ships are all around our world. Why would they need to bounce off of that necessarily? But so you got these ships there that are coming down. They eventually destroy all these major cities. So you're following several characters in there. You got Will Smith plays a fighter pilot. You've got Jeff Goldblum, who plays a scientist who figures out what they've got going on. They both get taken with the president to Area 51. They in Area 51, they've got these aliens, some of the tech that's there that basically is re-energized. It's been dead since the 1950s, inert, and it's re-energized when the mothership comes close enough to the Earth. It's like, I don't know, wireless power that is able to hit. And then they use the ship basically to go back to the mothership and plant a virus and blow up the mothership, and all the other ones blow up, because that's basically the only way they can do it. So in a nutshell, would you say that's it?
In a nutshell, yes. Okay.
So the second one plays off that. It's 20 years later. The world is completely, even have the White House is restored. Just like
everything is perfectly restored.
Everything's like
nothing
what?
happened. There's no scars.
So
there's no
Yeah, so everything's back together. Everybody's living
Keeps the
together.
first
You
one
got
out.
one world government because we realized that our petty squabbles fighting against each other wasn't worth it.
Yeah, except you got warlords.
Well, yeah,
That
but
was a bit of an
I
issue.
think well, you're gonna have some minor skirmishes, but you would have the major powers supposedly were
They
working
came
together.
in, said that there's been like 20 years of peace between all of humanity, and it's like,
Yeah, that's true.
then they
did
go
have the warlords.
immediately go and visit this warlord who's like cutthroat,
and
it's like,
yeah, it's a
Wait!
no go zone because no one's gonna go there because this guy has total control and he kills other people. But so
yeah, but then we've had 20 years of perfect peace.
perfect peace except for that. Sounds like government propaganda.
And then
So-
they put, of course, they have the woman president, which I think they put the money on the wrong horse in that case.
Well, they did, and there's also a lot of kowtowing to
China.
Yes, they had it was supposed to be a major character, but she really didn't fit in there much at all. You had a petite, cute Chinese pilot woman, and she is you don't really see a whole lot of her. Then you got this guy who's in charge. He's also Chinese, and it really does it puts. I'm not anti-Chinese. I'm anti-Chinese Chinese Communist Party, definitely for the political side. That's probably as political as I'll get. But they do this in movies sometimes to be able to open up the Chinese market to say, oh, look how great China is. They're so good and they're a part of the national community. We'll draw them in. So you have all these happening, and then they are prepared for another alien invasion because we're using their tech, and we totally reverse engineered all their tech, and we've got this big massive guns, and lo and behold, here comes the bad guys over the moon's horizon again, and it opens up a wormhole, and this big ship comes out, and they say, shoot it now.
Yeah.
Ask questions later.
No aggressive action. That's not the same technology. It's very obviously not the same species. In fact, we know that the aliens we have a negative reaction to this sort of spaceship design. In fact, they fear the spaceship design.
I don't know if they knew that right off the bat, though.
No, that was already established.
Okay.
Before that point. And it's like, okay, so your enemies are scared of this spaceship,
and we shoot it down.
Let's shoot it down.
Well, let's just give them a little bit of room here. To say that it's totally different technology and there's no way it could be from the same species. Not necessarily. Just because it looks different doesn't mean that it's not from the same.
It's convenient
species.
They didn't have any sort of protection on the spaceship too, like shields, which is like standard for the bad aliens. Yeah. Super duper shields that can block anything ever.
Okay, so they come in this spaceship, they shoot down the good guys, and then there's all sorts of muddled subplots that are all over the place that don't really get resolved in a lot of cases. Basically, what happens in the end is they figure out from the alien, the good alien that was there, it's the last of its kind. It came to help us, but it really doesn't help us in this fight.
Nope.
It just offers a promise later for more sequels, which of course never happened.
And we want you to help us.
Yes, basically we're here to get your help. And I don't want to spoilers all over the place. Why not? They had gone in and destroyed the mothership, which has a queen. There's a hive mind mentality behind it. If you kill the queen, everybody else goes inert. And the big bad ship flies away, leaving the Earth. So there are a lot of, just besides the plot holes that are in here too, there's a lot of physics things that don't make sense. This ship is like, I don't know, half the size of the moon, and it looks like enough mass that when it gets close to the Earth, cars go flying out into air because it has enough gravitational pull, and skyscrapers large buildings start flying off into the air too. If it were that big, and had that much mass,
it would have ended up destroying the Earth.
Now, here's the thing with this. So in the first movie, there were also some technical and some physical flaws, some scientific flaws with it. Us being able to hack into an alien ship and give it a virus, good luck on trying to reverse engineer their code. So, but you brush that aside because you like the characters so much. You like what's happening. There's a feeling of patriotism there. We're gonna beat the bad guys, all that kind of stuff there. So you're willing to forgive all that, and I think that's a really big clue here that's going on. We weren't able to forgive that for the second one because we weren't involved with the characters.
Nope.
And couldn't follow the plot. So I got another response here from the chat. Christian RPG Gamers, yay, welcome, brother. He says, I've seen them both. The first one legendary, the second one a decent movie. I remember that they showed this ship wasn't actually destroyed in an academy. They analyzed it. Yeah, I actually did kind of enjoy the second one, but it wasn't. It was a real suspension of disbelief with it. So we could, I think there's more that I have here that I'm not going to get into because I think we're beating a dead horse, I think, at this point. Thematic review. And this is where we want to take a look at what some of the deeper themes are in the movie. God bless you. Where you could look at this and say, hey, is there a parable here, a message that is a reflection of something deeper that just as Jesus used parables to bring a deeper message to an audience that either was not receptive to certain things or maybe a way for people to understand it. They were really wanted to hear and understand what he was talking about. They would grasp it. So what themes are there in here, if any? Now we're talking about both these movies, so you can take a look at either one. Eric, what would you say?
I would say the first one, and this is the one that I would pull out. The first one, like I mentioned beforehand, and it's one of the strengths of the movie, is it's just random individuals. This isn't something that's planned, isn't something that's capable. And we see that a lot, actually, with God. He isn't choosing the best or what we would consider the best for the job. He's got his plan. It's unfolding, but it's not the way we expect it.
Right.
He normally chooses the weak individuals, whenever he's choosing King David.
Yeah.
And it's like his own father didn't even think he was important enough to include.
Right.
When the priest came, it's like, yeah, he's out in the field, but you don't want to talk to him. This is your dad. Your dad shoved you to the back. It's like, wow, okay, thanks, Dad. That's great.
I'm king now. I remember what you said.
My goodness. But yeah, that's a sort of, and you see that over and over and over again with the prophets in the Old Testament, and even with Jesus coming. He didn't come as a great son of a king or anything like that. He came in the form of a servant.
Yeah.
And it just continues the pattern throughout.
Even the Apostle Paul, you would think, okay, here you got an educated individual, right? He's well respected within his community. Problem is, that's the wrong side. And
he's over there killing Christians.
That's right.
He's got all this back.
I think if I was one of the guys that would send out to greet him to bring him into the fold, I would say, Lord, do you know what this guy's been doing? You want
him? Are you
I'm
sure?
not going to give him my Wi-Fi password. No, he's a hacker. No, we're not going to bring him in. But you're right. That God does choose the weak and the
unexpected.
The unexpected to confound the wise and the smart, because the wisdom of God is wiser than man's wisdom, and the strength of God is stronger than man's strength. So, in every way.
Yep.
Very good. Very good. I'd be curious to see. We are really, when we do our thematic reviews. This is not one of those. When we do our thematic reviews, we invite the chat room, the audience, to participate in looking for themes themselves. I would still open that up to anybody who's in the chat to say, is there any particular theme that you would see here? Now we're looking at Christian themes that can be used as a message. If you were talking to somebody else, let's say you go to the theater, or you're at home and you're watching the show with one of your friends who may not be a Christian. You say, hey, did you see what, you know what that's like? And then use that as a way to introduce the concept of the gospel or different kingdom principles. So there we go. So we've got Christian RPG gamers. He said courage and self-sacrifice. Okay, bingo on both of those. And I think you see these in both movies.
You see in quite a few movies. So.
I'm almost tempted to ask him to call in. We're not really set up for a call in this morning, so we can't do it. But this would be This would be generally the time that we would try to say, hey, because it's harder to have a conversation going back and forth and ask the question, why? Can you explain why this is? But I think you're right. I think it's kind of obvious, at least, to say courage and self-sacrifice in this movie. When you have and I'm going to put his. Let's do this. I'm going to show the characters that are on here. These are the characters that are in the movies. These are the ones that are, I'm going to show the first one for Independence Day 1. So, and then I'm going to compare that to Independence Day 2 and have highlighted the ones that repeat. So one of the problems with the second movie is that you have so many characters, so many subplots, so much going on that you can't really find a single thread. But there's a couple here that is absent and missing. Will Smith was not in this movie, in the second one. He was part of the reason why he wasn't was because he was working on other movies, working on Suicide Squad, so he couldn't be in this one at the same time. At least that's officially what is said there. But you can see with these characters in the first one, you had the father who sacrificed himself. Where's the where is he? I don't see him. But you have the father who was drunk. He was the pilot, the crop duster, who makes the big sacrifice going in and destroying the ship. So you're right. Courage and sacrifice are two very important big themes that are in there that I think they can translate to say that, well, maybe I'll put this out as a question to you. Is that something that's needed maybe more today than it was 40 years ago? Courage, at least courage, and then self-sacrifice with that too. What would you say?
I'd say definitely the father role is critical. I mean, something that's definitely been downplayed by Hollywood itself. How that is not a thing anymore. How anyone can take any role and who cares. But yeah, they don't have that self-sacrifice like my kids matter more than my life does, and I'm going to lay it down so that they have the opportunity to live. That wasn't a thing.
No, and also courage here too, like you said, that especially in the era of COVID, everybody's got to be, safe, stay safe, be safe, instead of be courageous or take care as a sign for salutation to say goodbye to someone. And I think what we should say to each other is take courage, take opportunity to go out there and lay your life down for someone else. So I think another theme that was in here that I like to pull out, and it's not necessarily something that you'd see as much in the first one as you do in the second one, and that is preparedness versus complacency. Now, the second movie really doesn't exemplify that a whole lot, other than to say, hey, they got a bunch of guns ready for another attack. Okay, that's good.
That lasts all 5 seconds.
That did, because it was blown out of the water. But the film examines the balance between being prepared for future threats and being complacent due to previous victories. The theme of preparedness versus complacency is a significant motif in the Bible. It's presented as a warning against complacency and a call to vigilance and readiness. And I'm going to just pull out some passages in the Bible that talk about it. I'm not going to read through the passages because they can be long, but I'm going to give you the references for it. The first one is the sluggard. Now, this is not very long, but it's in Proverbs 6, verses 6 through 11. And the writer of Proverbs advises the reader to observe the ant. So check out the ant, which works hard and prepares provisions in summer. In contrast, the sluggard, the lazy person, is warned that poverty will come like a robber, like an armed bandit. Little sleep, little slumber, a little laying of the head to rest, and poverty will come like an armed bandit, and you'll be wiped out. So there's a warning here against complacency and laziness that leads to ruin, and our action then is to be diligent and protective. Another passage is Matthew 25, 1 through 13. This is the parable of the 10 virgins. And basically, they're all getting ready for the bridegroom that's coming, and they have to make sure that their lamps are ready. And some women that were there, some of about half the virgins were saying, it's fine, I don't have to worry about it. And the others are saying, we got to be prepared. We don't know when he's coming. And when he does come, the ones that weren't prepared don't have enough oil, and the ones that do, they ask, hey, can you give us some oil? Says, we can't, we'll be out. So you're on your own. So when the bridegroom arrives, the foolish virgins are unprepared and miss the wedding feast. So here's another warning about preparedness. You also have Ephesians chapter 6 talking about the armor of God, being prepared for warfare, and that's through actively equipping ourselves with prayer, scripture, and right living. Watchfulness in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, talking about the return of Jesus. Now, just not as the parable of the 10 virgins. This is at the actual return of Christ. Be ready, be prepared, self-alert, self-controlled, living as children of the light of the day. And then finally in Revelation, you have the lukewarm church that's just kind of, whatever. You got to be there. God said, I'd actually rather that you be cold, because I can do something with it. When you're lukewarm like this, there's no conviction. There's nothing else that's going on. You need to be on fire for Christ. So I'd say all of those are part of the deal. And there's more that we can talk about that, but I want to see what your response is and what we have in the chats.
My response is to what? Because I already gave my...
Well, no. To what I was just talking about with... Obviously, what I was just talking about. Your response to that. About being prepared. Good. Warning. Okay. No, nothing to add.
No.
Okay. I thought, because it looked like you were going to say something. Okay. And then Davos said, I would say courage and self-sacrifice are needed today. Yeah, probably more so than maybe some of the other virtues. That is because we have people that are we have a society and a culture that is so self-centered and looking for pleasure and comfort that getting out and self-sacrifice is like, why me? Why do I have to do it? Why not you? It's good enough. So basically, I would say that we could use this as maybe as a vessel on Independence Day. We could say, remember the sacrifices of people that came before us, and that we're called to make those sacrifices as well as time, and take courage, move out of our comfort zone, and maybe reach out to other people that need our help. Coming up next week, we've got a review on just asking the question, is there any place for Christian science fiction or Christian fiction at all? What's the point? Why should we waste our time in it if we should at all? Should we move on to other things and say, forget about anything in entertainment at all? That's not the place of the church. The Christian shouldn't be involved with that. Or is there a place, a role that we can take that would actually make a difference, make an impact? Then next Thursday, this is kind of tentative coming up to see what's going to happen. We have a conference that's going to go on, and I want to focus in on some of the classes that are going to be in that conference. We're going to talk, this is primarily apologetics, and some of these classes there, we're having some really good speakers that are going to be there. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be really fantastic. Do you want to say anything about the conference that's coming up?
Sure. We've kept this conference is in Ohio. We've kept this conference free. There should be a link on my channel, if not in the description of this video.
I will put one in. I will put one in on this.
That you guys can go get if you want to register for that. We're looking at a good turnout for this, both online and in person. In person, I would advise in person being cool to hang out, cool to get those connections. If you can, that'd be great. If not, well, at least you have the online option.
Okay, so what is with the online option? Because Ohio might be difficult for some people to get to.
Some of the presentations will be streamed, some will be recorded and released later.
Now, we've done that with others, or at least you've done that with others, like when we had Apologeticon down in Florida.
Yes.
We re-released some of the speakers there. Some of those speakers there are going to be at the Ohio conference. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct.
And also we had last year, you did this last year as well, correct?
Yep. Last year we streamed. We had some technical difficulties with the stream. Was not the best. We have worked those issues out. The audio will be much better.
Okay. So looking forward to that. If you have the opportunity, it's great. If people say, where is Ohio? Well, you have to look at them that somewhere out in the Midwest and in the United States somewhere, right?
Somewhere over there. Yeah.
Yeah. Over there. Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And we're going to have more coming up after next week too. There's more reviews that we're doing and getting back into some more apologetics as well. Thanks for your time and looking forward to that next time.